Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
No.
No. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Request everyone to kindly rise for a silent prayer before we begin. Good evening to all of you in this room. This is the second week of this case. Dear KMA members, I think we have been lucky to start off the year with a great speaker last week in sync with our theme for the year, that is empowering youth. And then the sub-theme of the empowering youth was the Young Minds initiative that we plan to take on later this year. And today we have two great people with us with young minds, I would say. That is Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan and Mr. HRISHIKESH Bhattacharya. Mr. HRISHIKESH could not join us physically, so he's there with us online. Coming to today's evening and the eminence of our speakers, as we all know, I think literally both of them do not need any introduction. But today they are here with us to get their recently launched book, Embrace the Future. And going by their experience, I'm sure that we will have yet another beautiful book to keep, to read, and to emulate whatever is written there. Yesterday's successful stories in business could be today's failures. And today's successful businesses could perhaps scale newer heights or go down the drain. It all depends upon how we embrace the future. Embracing the future has got so many facets to any company or even a person's personal life. I do not want to get into the details of the book because we have the book review going to be taking place very soon. And my duty this evening is to welcome all of you to this evening and also to welcome our chief guest, Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan. Mr. R. Gopalakrishnan is an author currently. He's also a mentor to many companies. He's got 50 years of experience behind him. He was a former director of one of the most successful, most respected companies that corporate India is seeing or has seen, and that is none other than Tata Sons. He has also been the former vice president of Unilever. And Mr. HRISHIKESH Bhattacharya again is another man with 50 plus years of experience. He was also the former vice president of Unilever, having worked in Europe for the company. And to moderate or take the discussion forward, we have Mr. K. HARIKUMAR, who is our senior vice president. Again, he is another great man with over 40 years of experience in various public sector companies. I would call him a turnaround man. As we all know, I do not have to kind of introduce him too much. And after having done a stint with the government, retired as very recently as the managing director of Transportation Chemicals, the TCC. He is now, or he was handpicked by Dr. Warrior of the Kottakkal Arya Vaidhya, which is the most respected Ayurveda group in the country, or even I would say across the world. So we have these three stalwarts with us speaking to us today, and I would take this opportunity to welcome all of you three sirs to this meeting. In the absence of our secretary and our joint secretary, we had requested Mr. Tom Joseph, our managing committee member, to be with us, to take their place, and I also welcome you, dear Tom, to this meeting. Once again, I would not want to keep all of you from our stalwarts. They would take over the meeting now. And once again, a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Rishi, with the waters of, you're able to hear and see.
I think you'll have to use your mic, sir.
No, you can't hear me. Rishi, you can hear us and see us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that you're in the conversation. Otherwise, suddenly, poor chap, he's not heard what happened, and then we say, what is your coffee?
Hello. Welcome you all here to embrace the future. Who doesn't want to embrace a future which is not known? Everybody wants to mold a future and then embrace it rather than embrace an unknown future. We have two great personalities here. I won't call them gurus because guru I think is somebody academic. So practitioners, I think, is a more apt word. Two great management personalities with us here today. Mr. Gopal is here in flesh and blood, and Mr. Rishi is there virtually with us. And they are going to talk about their book, Embrace the Future. Mr. Gopalakrishnan and Mr. Rishi has already been introduced by the President. And he is not new to KMA. Mr. Gopalakrishnan is not new to KMA because I think this is the third book of his which is getting released in KMA, and he is here for the third time. So it's a proud moment for all of us because 3 out of his 19 books are getting released in KMA. So it's a proud moment for us. And as President said, he had a professional career of more than 50 years at Unilever and TATA. And when we talk about Mr. HRISHIKESH Bhattacharya, he is a management consultant, teacher and an author. And he also has a career spanning over 50 years. And he quit as the Vice President of Unilever and was based in Europe. First of all, I would like to put things in perspective. This book deliberates on what is business transformation, why transformation, when business needs to be transformed, and how businesses are to be transformed. So all the aspects of transformation, like why, what, when, and how, everything has been addressed in this book. And it also says what all things are to be kept in mind when transformation is being undertaken. And they have quoted extensively from nature, they are quoted from history, they are quoted from medicine, religion, and they have made a case that transformation has to be continual and not episodic. This is a very, very important point which they are trying to bring out. It's not that you decide that transformation is going to happen tomorrow and transformation has ended today. It has to be a continual transformation. And Gopal goes on to say that transformation has to combine heart and mind and also has to get the combination right. This book also says transformation has to be adaptive. It has to be adaptive like in nature. In nature we have seen dinosaurs perish while cockroaches have survived. And to understand this better, let us just look around us. In 30 years, in the year since 2000, world's top companies by market capitalization were companies like GE, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, Walmart, Citigroup, Pfizer, Intel, British Petroleum, Johnson and Johnson and Shell. These were the top companies, top 10 companies by market capitalization in the year 2000. If you look at the top market capitalization companies, you will find only Microsoft now in that position. Even in India, out of top 10, only 3 companies have retained their position, that is Reliance, Infosys and Hindustan Unilever. All other companies which were in top 10 that time, in 2000, are no longer there. This itself points out that the organizations have to transform and transformation has to be continual. Let me tell you that for any practicing manager, this is a book not just worth reading, it's a book worth studying, it's a book worth understanding, because very many cases, real life cases have been mentioned, because they have been working in the top companies in India. Apart from that, they have been active in the management circles and they have quoted extensively from other companies. If you go through the book, it's very easy to relate to very many facts mentioned in the book. This book runs into almost 230 pages and it is actually more or less equally shared between the 2 authors. Both have authored almost around 120 pages. And this, as I was saying, the books talk about Tata companies, and it also talks about how companies like Brook Bond, Lipton, Tomco, all which have been merged into Hindustan Unilever. It talks about L&T. It talks about transformation in Marico, Kottakkal Mahindra extensively. Which all companies are there are listed in the stock exchange. Which all companies, everybody, the names are familiar with. Almost all the companies' names have been mentioned. And Gopal talks about the soft aspect of transformation, that is soft and behavioral aspects of transformation, which he calls heart plus mind. Rishi talks about the strategic aspects of transformation, that is analytical and intelligent aspects. So both together take care of the heart, mind and brain, if I am not wrong. As Gopal is physically here and has written the first part, let us get into a dialogue with Gopal. First of all, let me start with a general question. In a fast-changing world, where lifespan of companies is less than 18 years, as against 61 years in 1958, and when organizations are aware about the need and necessity to transform, why only 12% of the transformations achieve its objective?
Thank you very much, HARIKUMAR. I'll express my thanks, if I may, for a minute, to the Kerala Management Association. I can see past presidents sitting here. Nirmala's here, Madhav is here somewhere. I saw Madhav when I came in. And I know there have been very excellent presidents, Mr. T.T. Thomas, Mr. Nair. And so today we have another of the great sons, industrialist sons of Kerala. So I'm very honored. On behalf of Rishi and myself, I would like to convey my thanks to all of you. The place was also, the occasion also brought a number of friends. My friend Jacob was, I always thought he was Gujarati, who happens to be a Syrian Christian, but it turns out he's a real Syrian Christian, you know. So very nice, and Aip is here. I'm sure there are a few others that I'll meet later in the evening. So thank you all very much. This is absolutely extraordinary that in Kerala Management Association, there are probably about 80 people here, something like that, 80, 90 people. And on a Friday evening, in most other places, people say, the week is over. But you folks have come, and I must say, on behalf of Rishi and myself, we are truly honored. Now I'll come to answering your question. Your question, as I understood, was why do companies not embrace the future? Because the fortune list suggests that they're all...
I was asking why only 12% of the transformations achieve its objective. In other words, why 88% fail?
You see, I think one must put the lens on this. It's like saying nature or God, depending on how you feel about it, has created, you know how many species on this planet since its inception? Do you know? Does anybody here know how many species were created on this planet? It is 8.776 lakhs. I'm going to give you statistics which are no way of verifying, by the way. But they sound impressive anyway. But this is not, I'm not making it up, it's really true. And why is it that only the few number of species that we have now have survived? The history of evolution and survival in nature shows that there are 3 or 4 reasons that you don't, probably more than 3 or 4, but I'll keep to 3 or 4. One is to do with self. Atma Bodh is not there. So you become arrogant, you become complacent, and I won't go into that because everybody recognizes it. And the air in India is full of arrogance, and we are all breathing that air. So I won't go into that. And I wrote a book called Crash on this, which you launched here in KMA some years ago. The second reason why is they don't adapt. And what lesson we can learn from nature is it's not the biggest that survive, it's the most adaptive that survive. And we have written in the book, the dinosaur has not survived, but the microbe has. And if you forgot the microbe, it came to visit you a few years ago and kept you all at home. One of the things that I'm very pleased about is the presence of women here, because this is somehow seen as a corporate subject and only people interested in corporates, but it's really the message that Rishi and I have is for everybody, whether you're running a family, a joint family, a small business, a medium business, a big business, a government, a municipality. It applies to all of them because all of them need to adapt. And therefore I particularly want to note the presence of so many women who at least so far have shown great interest with sharp eyes and smile on their face. I hope we will continue to keep it that way. Now, why is it that people know they must adapt and don't adapt? And then, if you're the CEO of the company, you can come in and say, oh, these people are all resistant to change. But if you're the person at the other end of the company, you say, what are we changing for? Can you explain to me? Will my job be at stake? So there's a mismatch, if I may use the word, there's an asymmetry of perceptions about the future. Frankly, nobody knows the future. So nobody can tell you this is exactly the future that you will have. And therefore it is a very important part of making strategy in a company. We all have done strategies in our companies to make it a mixed vegetable curry of many people's opinion. Very often in companies, the senior people will have an away day. They'll go to Kottakkal or some beach somewhere. They'll storm their own parades. I've also done it, by the way, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a wrong thing. And then they come out and say, here's a strategy. They'll reveal it, like the 10 commandments they've got from the mountain. But increasingly the complexity of running anything, from a municipality to a family to a company, requires the knowledge that you don't have to be brought into the strategy making. That's why Rishi and I, who have been more friends than colleagues, we have been both, but more friends than colleagues, felt that we should put these together into one book. Because you don't get a chance in the morning to think of the soft side and the evening of the hard side. They both come together. And you know this, Mr. HARIKUMAR, because you have run big organizations. Jacob knows this. He was my colleague in TATA Chemicals in Mitapur. And we had to take some really tough decisions. But people like Jacob, and there are many others there, who are able to carry people with them. It is not the cleverness of your capital investment or the modernization of your packing line that makes a difference. And when you fail to do this, and the examples after examples you can see, the fortune that Rishi and I have had, before I hand over to Rishi to add his comment, is, although together we have professional experience of 100 years, approximately 50 each, we worked in companies, both of us, which have about 250 years life. So we are like that tortoise that landed to meet Vasco da Gama on the beach of Calicut, and has survived. I mean, Hindustan Lever has been around for 100 years and Tata has been around for 160 years. So if you add the two of us together, you get quite a large number. And in a discussion we had, which began as a friendly discussion, we said, why do companies last long? And how can people be more alert to this? We came to the theme of this book, that living long is not an accident. Now you are from Ayurveda, now in your new avatar. So I should not preach to you, but I actually call it corporate Ayurveda. That's the word I've used. It's the stuff we put together in the book is to create a long life institution. Just like when your baby is born, you have to change the nappies, you have to do all that stuff, but then there are certain things you have to do which will provide long life and fulfillment for that child as it grows up. In my view, the reason why Hindustan Lever or Tatas have is they had a very good, now I'm going to use a word which sounds like jargon, they had a very good purpose. The founders of the company had a very simple, elegant, the beginning, the Gangotri, the Talakaveri, the beginning of a river is always pure and simple, right? If you go to Talakaveri, it's very peaceful and quiet. Gangotri, very quiet. You even look at religions. Moses went, he came back with 10 commandments only. But that 10 commandments has given rise to so many algorithms now. And you can find different faiths of church, this, that, different flags, all sorts of things. Likewise, Vedanta. The essence of Vedanta is quite simple. But when you start explaining the simplicity, then you get on the other side of complexity. That happens in every religion. Muhammad went up, the lightning flashed, he got a revelation, but then that has become very complex. So just like a river flows from simplicity to complexity, when it comes to Allahabad, the Ganga is a very broad river with multiple currents under it. Actually, it can be dangerous. And by the time it reaches Ganga Sagar in Bengal, it splits into various things. That's why you have Marthomite church, that church, this type of Hindu, that type of Hindu, you know, that's what happens. Companies also go through that. And the genius, I think, no, I should not say the word genius because that gives the wrong interpretation of idea. The positive thing that's happened in Tatas and Levers is they had a very simple purpose which they more or less kept together for 150 years. What was the purpose in Hindustan Lever? The founder said, I am making all this so, this is 1880. He said, I am making all this so that the teeming millions all over the world can be clean. He had an idea on hygiene. And today also Unilever is still making hygiene. The hygiene may take the form of beautification, hair, skin, you know, and there are multiple divisions. Likewise Tata, Jantaji Tata said, I am not a part of the community, I exist because of the community. We got Sujata here from former Tata, present Tata person, she's nodding her head vigorously, which is true. And it is an amazing thing that Tata has 1 million employees.
Yeah.
1 million. But everybody knows that this is the purpose of the company. Because from the day you join, it's like you're in the Catholic Church, you get a sacrament or whatever it's called, you know, it's with you. Even if you left Tata, you'll always remember that that's the purpose of Tata. That simplicity of purpose gets lost when multiple generations of leaders come about. You can take many companies which have been great companies, but their life has been shortened. It is very much like saying the principles of good health are well known, Ayurveda or Ikigai or whatever you want to choose. Don't put on weight, don't sit still, keep your mind calm. Who doesn't know all this? But we will go to Kottakkal, spend the time and the money, get rubbed up this way and that way to discover what we already know.
Absolutely.
Why does a guy put on weight? Nobody's saying you should have black hair at the age of 80. Why do people not exercise? Don't they know it? Why don't people know? But you go to Baba Ramdev, watch his TV in the morning and do it. The same reason why companies also fail. But they know what is right, but it's so difficult to do what is right consistently that it happens. That's my view. Rishi, please feel free to.
Please.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things to what Gopal has already said, and to address this percent problem, or the 12% solution, that why is it people who are even conscious the task of having to transform themselves end up failing, because that is not the purpose with which they started. And I think, or both of us say, Gopal and I, in our discussion and writing the book, is that transformation has become a victory-lose word in today's vocabulary in business. Because various things that people are doing is called transformation. For example, it's very easy nowadays to talk about digital transformation, or AI being the new transformation tool, or organizational transformation. And you will notice that each one of these that I mentioned are looking at internally into the business, very often into the past, because the reason for wanting to do this are problems. The past has been a problem for the company, and then they want to transform themselves, but keep looking internally and looking at enablers to understand the output that they have to produce. So in our way of word transformation is only valid if it comes and impacts the external to the business, not the internal to the business. And unless your product or service or whatever you are offering is not making a difference the life of your customers, it is not impacting them, changing, then that is not transformation. And I'll give you a simple example of what transformation is. I came to India very much intending to but because of ill health, I could not travel. But what we are doing today, the fact that I am still present and you can hear my voice and see my appearance, is because of a transformation that someone for Zoom or Microsoft Teams has created. This has touched our lives in a very, very significant way, where distances are collapsed and we can talk with each other and discuss with each other, something that did not exist 20 years ago. In answer to your question, sir, we feel that transformation as a strategy has to be an external opportunity or an external threat that the business deal with. And people who do that significantly, who think that through, also need digital transformation, also need organizational transformation, so on. Those are enablers, external enablers, but the real game is taking place in the marketplace. And if more and more people do it, the percentage will go from 12 to 20 to 30 to 40. I'm quite sure that the percentage of success, though it is into the future, though it is into the unknown, will improve dramatically if people take an external view of what they do.
Can I just add? This is a very important point that Rishi has made. I just want to underscore it. There are always tinkering and changes. So if you're cutting your workforce by from 1,000 to 800, we think that's all transformation. It is a kind of transformation. I call it change. You're cutting cost. You had 25 depots, you now made it streamlined into 5 master depots and 50 small depots, you improved your distribution. Real transformation, which is the point underscoring our book, is when it has changed the life of the people, the consumers. So Rishi often gives this example, which I am stealing from him openly. He says this gadget that we are carrying, wasn't there. And it has really changed our lives. And there are many such examples one can take, but please remember there are two kinds of transformations. There are transactional transformations, which are short term, which are to solve a particular problem, to cut costs, reorganize, change your distribution. There are truly transformational things, which take a long time. It's like saying, I'm raising a child, and it's going to take me 25 years to know whether I've been a good parent. Really, no parent knows that he's doing it right. But every parent does it. So it is not, we are not telling you something which is outward, which is new. All of you are doing transformation every day. Some of you successfully, some of you unsuccessfully. Some of you depend on how you look at it. If my child becomes a person with Kottakkal in his ear and he's singing rap music at 3 o'clock in the morning, you may think it's a bad way to bring up my child. I may be very proud of my child. That's all right. Okay?
Absolutely. So when you talk about, told about two transformations. If you're talking about transactional transformation, which you just said, is it that the human approach is missing in transactional transformation? Basically because, see, you are talking about, there the focus is on transaction. Is it by cost cutting, retrenchment, and pink slips? All these things are also considered to be one form of transformation.
No, things like cost cutting and so on, at least Rishi and I are offering the point of view that we are grouping them, and it's an arguable point, but for the purpose of this book, we are grouping them as transactional. You have to do transactional things. You have to change the baby's nappy, for God's sake. You can't keep dreaming that the child will become a professor after 50 years, So you have to change nappies and stop crying and give a feed. Those are the transactional parts of parenting. But if you think that's your role as a parent, just changing nappies and cooking and feeding the child and making the person healthy or fat, that's not true. The real parenting is what you put into that child, values, culture, whatever you want to call it, so that at 25 or 30, that person will be a very responsible member of society. That is, it will have an impact. That's what we would all like of our children, and they have an impact. Everybody doesn't become Prime Minister, but we do raise children for that. So it is very important to make the distinction. The people part is a constant. The strategy part is also a constant, but we are emphasizing that strategy you can come to because it's a brain exercise. In a transactional thing, a few people can sit down and say we need to cut our numbers from 1,000 to 800. But if they implement it without compassion, then it has certain negative effects. You have seen what's happening in Vaidhya. You must have read this morning's newspaper. When Vaidhya was growing, everybody said, this is worth how much? 26 billion. 22. And if he had held out a little more, it would have been 30. But the oxygen that's required to maintain a company, which is a little bit of profit, EBITDA, whatever you want to call it, if it's missing, then at some stage it catches up with the unfortunate consequences.
Then you have quoted how Dr. Irani handled Tisco. The same story, right? Where you have to take the people along when the business is getting transformed. See, let me ask you another question. See, for transformation to happen, the organizations also should have the capacity and capability also to take on that transformation. How do you assess the capacity and make the organization capable of getting transformed? How do you do that?
That's a very good question. One of the aspects covered in the book is you have to design a transformation program which takes into account the capacity for change. And since I know you're into Ayurveda only for the last few months, but since I'm in Kerala, if I don't talk about Ayurveda, where will I talk about Ayurveda? When a doctor gets a patient, there are different kinds of personalities. He designs his thing to suit that. Some people are squeamish, some people are damn scared of an injection, some people are very scared of pain, and he designs his regimen, if he's a good doctor, to help them to get over their hang-ups. Companies also have that, and I can say that assessing that, and it's not a numerical assessment, it is an intuitive assessment. that this would be too far. If I take something that's known to everybody and I don't want to keep on talking about Tata or Lever, how was Hindi thought of as a national language? Think back to 1950s. Okay, it got into the constitution. Then they said it's a constitution, now everybody from tomorrow Hindi. You know what happened. Pandit Nehru solved it by saying, okay, 15 years, many languages. So everybody forgot about it. It is like they say, if your last date for filing tax returns is 31st March, from the 30th midnight everything will start. Studying for the exams is exactly the same. We did not try, barring the 2 years of aberration during the emergency. It was not pushed on people's throats, but people saw that, hey, if I have a small family and I raise them well with my income, it's good for me. And there were societal changes, because in the old days, your grandfather, great-grandfather, my great-grandfather's time, prolific production of babies was considered a very good daughter-in-law. But that's crazy from our point of view. But in those days, because they knew that there will be a mortality. If I have 10 children, 2, 3 will go. Today we don't have that concern. We spend all our energy and money on making sure that we have 2 and 2 survive, or 1. So I'm taking the example of family planning and national language, not to illustrate a perfect way to do transformation, but it's something where the facts are known to everybody. We don't have to sit and make a case study out of it. Patience, time, capacity to change have all got to be assessed intuitively.
You have also quoted the farmers' agitation as a way of how not to do it, right? Farmers' agitation.
Not agitation, the farmers' bill, I'm saying.
Yeah, farmers' bill. And agitation happened because of the bill.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If you're not, you see, in the case of many things, you take 2 things that were, again, I don't want to go into politics, I'm taking it purely as an intellectual subject here. You see the GST, it's a highly complicated thing. You had a man like Jaitley, who would talk to everybody, who will do this, you do compromise, adjust. Maybe he's a master at that. Whether he's done a good job or not, you can have your own opinion. But GST was implemented finally. And then lots of problems are there, they've been slowly getting ironed out. I think that's an example of, you take the farmer's bill or demonetization, you get up in the morning and just announce it. It's like a guy comes to the company and says, from tomorrow we don't want 200, all of you open your envelope and see whether you're staying or going. It's a shock treatment which doesn't necessarily work.
Rishi, what is your take on this?
Yeah, I would like to give, we are talking about the future transformation and how is the current capacity going to meet the challenges of the future. I think that was your question, right?
Yeah.
So, we believe that time that is there in an organization is infinite, in the sense that you start somewhere, can't smart continue for literally ever. Now, I would like to give the example of Microsoft as a way of thinking around how do companies create capacity. And one of the important things there is that more than anything else, managers have to manage the extremely well. It is the management of the present, the grasp of the present, that determines how successful you are, what margins you have, how many people you can employ, what wages you give them, and so on and so forth. So when people manage the present well, they tend to be able to have time and resources, be able to think through the future too. Microsoft in their entire history of coming up to almost 50 years now has had only 3 CEOs. Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and now Satya Nadella. And if you think about I'm choosing this because most of us are familiar with Microsoft operations space, is that they are enormously different from where they started with MS-DOS and where they are today. They were just a supplier of software to IBM to start with, and today they are a very, very different type of company. So capacity building is a task, just like we are saying that cutting is a task. Replacing people sometimes might be a task, but building people, retraining people, and putting them passionately to the future that you are crafting. In the last 10 years of Microsoft and TATA has been absolutely spectacular. And that happened because he changed the business model of the company in a very, very dramatic way. Because there was no selling of Microsoft software to Apple, for example. And that one simple thing made a big difference for Microsoft. And what they have done on cloud computing and on knowledge sharing is also very, very big and important. But most of the people, they were able to retrain, re-engage back in. Of course, the new people came in, new recruitment took place, some people left, people retired, and so on. But management of that is equally important. So, in our book, as we have repeatedly said, you have to carry the mind and the heart together. The heart represents how we manage people. Mind represents how we try to win customers. And when we are winning customers and protecting our people, that is the magic formula with which people can actually trust.
Rishi always reminds me that there is something important to underscore in what he just said, if I may. You know, we think of management as a sort of a science. You get a master's in business administration. You are taught scientific management. You are taught quantify, otherwise you will not know what to do next. These are not wrong, but they are not entirely right.
Much more than that.
I consider management as a performing art. It is like Kottakkal or Bharatanatyam. Or like golf. Golf is also a very good performing. Those of you who play golf will know this. You can be told all the rules. Keep your head down, don't move your left shoulder, come down slowly, bend your knee. Those of us who played golf know how easy it is to learn golf intellectually, but how difficult it is to execute. And above all, how difficult it is to execute consistently. I mean, the moment you get one hole in one, you think you arrived. You're about to go on to be the next Tiger Woods until the next one goes into the rough. So management is also like that. Every hole is different. Every situation is different. In order to help with this complex field that we are in management, at the end of each chapter we have summarized bullet points. It is not a tick in the box thing, because you can't do that. But just a refresher. And I am hoping that if you are involved with the transformation, there will be very few people who are not involved with some transformation. Once in a while, like the priest will tell you, open the Bible any page, you'll get some solace out of your troubles. In the same way, this won't be like that, but it'll give you some sense of.
See, I have a question to you. You say you are a non-believer in vision mission statements, and you feel these are just feel-good statements. And you also say that strategies can't emerge from these statements, and what you need is a core purpose statement. Can you please elucidate? I think Gopal has a different take on it, is it?
No.
You also believe that it's not, these are just feel-good statements?
No, I think Rishi's way of saying it. Go ahead, Rishi, you speak for yourself.
Yeah, I think what we were trying to affect in many years of our own practice in our own companies and then working as consultants and advisors and so on, and helping companies to being a catalyst companies to sort of take their business forward. we often found that there were vision statements and mission statements pasted on the walls as you enter the lobby. There's the vision statement followed by mission statement. And when you ask people in that company, some board members, some senior managers, some middle managers, some more junior people, what do you understand as the vision of your company? And most of the time, people didn't remember anything that had been written out, typically by a consultant from someone from outside, sort of that work. That is what we mean by useless work that companies often end up doing, because it is sort of modern. It is, you look professional when you do those things. And words are different people. So Gopal and I felt that word vision, make it actually work, you need to explain it in two parts. One is corporate purpose. What are you in business in? What do you really want to achieve 10, 20, 30 years from now? What do you want this company to be? And the second one is targeted future. How am I going to achieve that corporate purpose in the next 5 years? So when you express it in these terms, we believe it becomes easier for practicing managers to understand and make it operate, instead of being stuff that you want to make monsters with and stick into your boardrooms or your lobbies.
You have anything to add?
Yeah, I just say that we agree on this point, because after some time it becomes routine. Somebody come and tell you vision, and he'll take 1 hour workshop, then he'll take 2 hour workshop on mission, then a 3 hour workshop on, then it's all put in nice boards, and then people carry on with life. Nothing makes corporate purpose more palpable to employees, to associates, to vendors, than the behavior of the leadership. If you tell people, I'll take one example, J.R.D. Tata, who was no buddy of mine. I mean, he was dead before I joined Tata's. Not because I was going to join Tata's, by the way, but he died in a natural way. He used the word often, leaders should be affectionate. Now, what's an affectionate leader? The archetype in our mind of a leader is he should be a tough cookie. He should look around like this and everybody should sort of freeze in their place. But J.R.D. was a living embodiment. Those who knew him, I didn't know him personally, but those who knew, even Ratan Tata, whom I of course know, I think these are examples. There's another one I'll tell you. When television first began in India, there was a journalist called Rajiv Mehrotra. Some of you will remember Rajiv Mehrotra. He's one of the first Barkadats of those days. And he wanted to, the idea that somebody would talk to, J.R.D. Tata would be in your drawing room was rather unusual in the late 80s, early 80s. And he interviewed J.R.D. Tata. And he said, Mr. Tata, this is available on YouTube, any of you can see it. Mr. Tata, there's the communist world, this is before the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then there's the capitalist world. Are you capitalists or are you socialists? Why do I get confused to think about Tata? And J.R.D. had a slightly French accent because of his upbringing. He said, I don't know. If you say there are only two options, then we must be the world's only socialist capitalist. It is a beautiful statement because Tatas are socialist capitalists. They are capitalists insofar as they take private capital and invest it and make a profit. They try to do it as far as they humanly possible in a decent and honest way. But when they get the money, they distribute it to other people. And it is this sort of behavior and example that leaders set in a company which really define the core purpose of the company.
Thank you. Is transformation leader initiated? Because in the chapter on leadership, you have used the word leader and shaper. Can you please clarify this? Is every leader a shaper? Or shaper is a different person than a leader? Or a shaper is part of being a total leader?
I don't want to split hairs with the English language, which is complex as it is, without our adding to it. And Mr. Shashi Tharoor is also not here, so I cannot possibly compete so closely to Thiruvananthapuram with Shashi Tharoor. But Rishi makes a very elegant point, which I will request him to make in a minute. What a manager does and what a leader does. I have used the word shaper to say the upper end of a leadership list is a shaper. So I'll explain that part and request Rishi to talk about the manager and the leader. You see, you can be a good CEO of a good company. And what we are all trained to think is you must strive hard to become a good CEO or a good vice president of a good company, whatever those definitions are. There's nothing wrong with that. But a few of those molecules escape when the thermodynamic reaction is taking place, and they jump out and become shapers of institutions. And shapers of institutions, as the word itself tells you, they are not chief executive officers, they are shapers. If you've seen those people who make those pots, they are constantly rotating the wheel to sort of get the shape right. And institution is different from a company. If a company lasts 30 years, 40 years, it falls off the Fortune 500 list, he'll be talked about a little bit and then passed on. An institution lasts. I was talking with Jacob Matthew yesterday in Kottakkal. Malayalam Manorama has been around 130 years. If that's not an institution, what the hell is an institution? Tatas have been around for a long time. They've had their ups and downs. They have their imperfections. Don't get me wrong, nothing is perfect about Tata. You walk into Tata, they can tell you 10 things that are wrong with it. But we are not in the business of finding things wrong with people. We are saying, on the whole, are you healthy? So that's the difference between the shaper and the leader. But Rishi, to you for the point about manager and leader.
Yeah. So what happens all the time is that these two words, leaders and managers, are often used interchangeably, and most of the time they are not wrong. But I think that all of us are leaders, all of us are managers, companies. So one myth that I want to remove is that the leaders are only the board members of the company. Guys are right at the top, the CEO, his management team are the leaders. Rest of us are followers, but we are not managers. That is very far from the truth, because when Gopal and I joined business in the late 60s, both of us, after some time, were assigned to being a manager in the field. We were area sales manager. Gopal worked in the south of India, Karnataka. I worked in the eastern India, some of the states. And both of us were primarily managers, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But we were also leaders, because to those 20 people in our area, we were the ultimate that they could look at, emulate, take direction. So leaders and managers work together. Funny thing is, not so funny thing, but the real thing is that both of them do the same three things. They do only three things and the same three. Number one, they set direction. Number two, they align people. Number three, they ensure that things get done. Now for the difference. These are the things that is similar. What is the difference? The leader is primarily responsible for managing change. Manager is primarily responsible for reducing complexity. Therefore, the three tasks are done by them very, very different. When I'm a leader, I set direction by creating the vision, creating the corporate purpose, creating the strategy. Those are jobs or ways by which direction is set. When managers set direction, they do it by setting annual estimates, setting budgets, setting short-term goals. The managers set it. So you can see the difference now between the big picture of change that is being created by the leaders and the small day-to-day things that make companies survive. The current is done by managers. And it's done at all levels, by the factory foreman, by sales supervisor, and indeed by the CEO and his team. So in each of these, to give you an example about aligning people, the leaders align people by choosing the people who are going to be passionate about what to do in the future, how to get to that future that we have ambition for. The mindset of a leader, a successful leader, is always that of success and built-in ambition to get to that success. But true leadership is therefore setting direction by moving beyond executive to visionary, while the manager is also setting direction, also aligning people, also ensuring that things get done. So when coming to getting things get done, managers do it by control system, but leaders do it by motivating. Both of them have the same objective of getting things done, but one does it by infusing people, the other does it by controlling. So if we understand these two things as similar on the three and different in how you do it, but the most important thing is that if people are not working for change, then there are no leaders in the company. And if people are not reducing complexity, there are no real managers. It's a little bit of complex thing which I have talked. I realize it after saying it, but I hope that it is sort of understood by a very distinguished audience that is sitting here.
And if I take a metaphoric, in any family, you need a role, I'm not saying husband or wife, of a provider. You need a role of a nurturer. You need a role of a shaper. Very commonly, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, the husband is expected to be the provider. A large part of the nurturing role is done by the mother, and almost all of the shaping role is done by the mother. And that is reflected in the fact that in most families, people will say, my mother taught me this, my mother used to say this. You know, that's not uncommon. In the same way, in a company, you must execute well. It doesn't necessarily come from the lower level. Some people are very good at executing and they are providers. Nurturers are people who create the values that make the company continue to do that job well. Shapers are somebody who imagine the future. And I think, I don't want to keep saying JRD Tata or other Tata, but people who are not yet declared shapers, but I think they are showing all the signs of being shapers, are people like Harsh Mariwala in Marico, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw in Biocon, Deepak Parekh in HDFC, Uday Kotak in banking. Shapers who are able to shape an institution which is by and large controversy free. So if I have missed some companies which start with A and end with I, it is not coincidental. I'm just being discreet.
I think time is running out. Before I make questions from the audience, I'll ask just one last question. What makes an Indian manager unique? We have been hearing about a lot of Indian global CEOs, and in the book it says that even Unilever has more than 250 people on secondment to global institutions. So what makes an Indian manager unique? Because you are all very esteemed management professionals. What's your take on that?
Go ahead.
Gopal is an expert on this. He has written a book about this. But I have a point of view which not everyone in India accepts, but my point of view, I manage this too well in other countries, and what qualities makes them do that. So I'll say that for a couple of minutes, and then Gopal will say the rest. I think one of the reasons why our people very well, many of them are already doing very well. The sort of people who are doing well overseas typically have got educated here, typically have done some work here, but they were top of their class most of the time, and they had certain qualities. And believe it or not, most of them who have been very successful carry the same concept. I'm not trying to promote the book, but it is about intellect, mind, and the heart. And Indian people, the way we grow up, the way we think, the way we are brought up in our families, we are pushed towards intellectual excellence. Simultaneously, we learn to be kind to people, to be empathetic, and so on. But when Indian managers or Indian people go overseas and then success has been very high in US. In the United States, many companies have CEOs, including Satya Nadella that I mentioned, and Chairman, CEO of Google, and plenty of other very big companies, CEO of Starbucks. There are many such examples. But what I believe in is that Indians, though we feel proud about Indians being ready-made, go there, make their impact, we sometimes discount the fact that they went there as young people and did a lot of further experience building, further education, further their maturity about how to work there really improved. And there was a reciprocity between the Americans who mentored these people most of the time, and they themselves and their innate qualities. And it is this combination that has made Indian managers do extremely well in the US. If you think of Japan, or if you think of Malaysia or Indonesia or Germany or France, Indian managers have not reached the scales that they have reached in the US. So my humble submission is we must give some credit to the US and what they do for our people, just as much as we should give credit to the people who have made enormous performance differences for themselves as well as for the country.
Thank you. Your comments, please.
Since I've written a book, I'm going to be very brief because danger is that I may take off. The essence of what I don't want to talk about this as though there's an Indian exceptionalism. Some people think we were very smart 5,000 years ago and they have to revive it. Some people think that we are very unique, our people all become CEOs of companies elsewhere. I'm not coming from that. I'm coming from an analytical, an intuitive observation. And that's the book that Rishi referred to. I think because of the intensity of competition in India, the intelligence is reasonably good. I don't want to make a big deal out of it. We are not all Phi Beta Kappa people, but they are reasonably good. When I went to, after studying physics and engineering, I was asked to go and sell soap. My, from the ranks boss at that time, he said in Hindi, he said, तुम लगता है कि बहुत पढ़े लिखे हो. I said, हाँ जी कुछ पढ़ा है. Physics honors पढ़े हो, फिर engineering पढ़े हो. हाँ जी पढ़ा है. ये देखिए भाई हमको तो साबुन बेचना है. आप लगते हो ZZI को. So I said, what is ZZI? समझ में नहीं आया. He said, जरूरत से ज़्यादा intelligent. And Indians are जरूरत से ज़्यादा intelligent for the task they are given, you know. So that's the first point. The second point is, it is natural for us to be adaptive. You know, when I was a kid, I had no room of my own. But if uncle, auntie, somebody came, I would be pushed out from there to somewhere else. You would share your little mattress with your cousin. There was no separate reading area for me. And I wasn't from a very poor family, you know, I was from a reasonable middle class sort of family. So, as we always say, adjust karo, adjust karo. Solpa adjust madi. You go to Bangalore, the auto will say Solpa adjust madi. What he means is, clear out of my way, I want to get ahead.
In Bombay local it is there.
Yeah. So, we are adaptive. Now, if you've grown up here for the first 10, 20 years, say typically 15, 20 years, these are inbuilt into you. You know, it's wired. You don't even think about it. When you go out, you suddenly find that there are processes, and if you follow those processes, you can get ahead and do your job. In our case, very often, processes are not so well laid out. And I'm not talking of top companies, I'm talking of generally. And then they are very adaptive. Indians will go there, they will learn other languages, they will adjust. A pure Jain vegetarian will become a mutton, chicken, beef eating fellow. You know, they keep adjusting. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, it depends on how you look at it. But the ability to be adaptive and the ability to be reasonably intelligent. You don't have to be a Nobel Prize winning fellow to be a CEO of a company, for God's sake. You know, then you might as well get the Nobel Prize. You have reasonable IQ, reasonable EQ by trying to adjust with each other, and you have reasonable capability to adapt. You produce a different character. The same guys who won't work here just go across the Gulf and then they're working there. When I first went as chairman of Unilever Arabia, my Arab partner asked me. He said, I hope you are from Kerala. So I said, I never expected my Arab partner to ask me that I'm from Kerala. But I said, no, I'm not from Kerala. He said, you look like one. I said, well, you know, I don't know whether any of my ancestors misbehaved, but... He said, where are you from? I said, Tamil Nadu. I said, but why are you so hung up on? He said, they are the hardest working chaps. When you take a flight from their land here, then you can fight. So we adapt, positively and negatively. And I think those are the reasons why we are showing some glimmers of success when we go out.
Good. Thank you. I think we can take 2 questions now.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sir, it's a great honor to have you here, and both of you. It's a great honor to have and listen to both of you. Fantastic. World has been transforming from generations, from one era to other era, from one generation to another generation, even from decade to decade. What is that social science, soft science of transformation, which you would have seen in your years, which is missing now? And what is that you would love to have had in today's corporate world, which you would have loved to have during your years, other than technology?
I don't know what Rishi feels, but I'll give you my answer and then maybe Rishi can chip in or anybody else can chip in. I think an open mind. We have been trained to think that we must have an opinion on everything. And whether it's for social harmony or for business philosophy integration, the real mark of a leader is a person who comes into the room. Maybe he has some view, but it's only a view, not an opinion. I'm making that distinction. And he's interested to know other people's opinion. That's an open mind. And therefore he demonstrates that he's willing to be influenced. I never thought of what Hari was saying the other day. I think he's got a point, you know. When I was a young trainee, we used to be invited once in a while for lunch with the chairman, who was a formidable guy called Prakash Tandon. And the room in which we were given the lunch was like a 5-star from our point of view. We had come out of some IIT and all, and eating with our hands, and you know. And some of us wanted to impress the chairman, some of us were frozen, didn't know what to say to the chairman. But one guy was talkative. So Mr. Tandon said, "How many years do you have?" He wanted to tell him talk less, but see how he did it. "How many years do you have?" He said, "I got 2. He said, "And your mouth?" He said, "I got 1. He said, "What's the surface area of your ear compared to your mouth?" He said, "This is about twice as much as my mouth." He said, "Then you should talk 1/4 and listen 3/4. That is the quality of, in the process, without his intending, I think he imparted a nice little lesson which has stayed with me. So, I think going with an open mind, and the best way to develop a closed mind or a combative mind is to watch television between 8:30 and 9:30. And if you want to go single-mindedly towards insanity, please watch TV. That's why. Vishi, anything you want to add?
I'd only do one thing. Might be of interest to more the younger people, the audience. I can't see the audience, so I don't know the composition. But the younger people and also the younger at heart, one of the things that we discussed, Gopal and I, is that quantitative methods, getting everything to numbers, is a very important part of our feeling that we are doing a scientific job, we are doing a rational job. And we therefore want to be as far as possible humorous. And in the process of doing that, we don't realize that when you are only depending on data, and we are depending on hard data, then that can only bring you to the present. Because all the data lies in the past. And absolutely sure about your data, then you can only reach the present. After that, you have to extrapolate. After that, you have to use your own intelligence or artificial intelligence or any other tools that might have to project into this. We believe that if you realize that quantitatives have their limitations and start looking for soft signals, data that already exists within the system, but which are not processed data, we miss them. For example, and this is because Mr. Hari is here, so I'm giving this particular example little bit because if you look at diabetes in this country, we are not only the IT capital of the world, we are also the diabetes capital. And there are 10 crore people who are diagnosed as having diabetes. And many of them are on medication. What people also know, but really the data is, but most people are not looking at it, that there is a state for free diet. And there are 114 crore people, so 50%, 40% more than the people who are diabetic, who are actually suffering from a pre-diabetes condition. these people are not being tackled, either they don't know, but if they were to know, could be enormous medical benefit that could be given to society and a very major build-up. If you take that one number and you say, what can I do with these people, prevent them from getting that? And the answer is a diagnostic test for HbA1c, which is available. The answer is not new technology, but old technology. Going back to Arya, 2000 years old, but there are formulations, there are skillful scientists who are able to treat pre-diabetes and which will remain that way for a much longer period than if allowed it to happen. And you have acts by which consumers or potential present patients can be linked to Ayurvedic and to Ayurvedic doctors who are not easily available at times, but today electronically, digitally, you can access them and they will give you prescriptions that you can get back. And most of the time they are looking at your tongue and nothing else. So you can use your phone and demonstrate your tongue to the doctor. So now you see that this data available, none of it is quantified, except that 14 crore people, but you can create the seeds of a very major business into the future and a very major societal health that you can provide. So my advice to people, younger people, is don't get obsessed with quantitative, mix quantitative with intuition, mix it with judgment, mix it with softer data that are available, and try to use your mind to create potential business models. That is one. Second advice, that hard times that we got for time and we best time is that we want to demonstrate that we are so smart that we have immediate answers to problems that placed in front of us. That is an index of smartness. Gopal and I talk with each other that in our time we used to formulate our eventual responses, actual decisions by taking time thinking about it. So take more time there and save that time when you implement, because when you implement, go as fast, super fast in implementation because you're sure about your decision. And the Japanese, as a society, they tend to do this much better than we Indians, or even worse than we Americans. So that's another thing that I would like to say in response to your question.
Okay, here's a quick question. There's a pretty long answer to a wonderful question. I want to talk to you as authors. You see, now we find that you spoke of purpose, and purpose of most companies today is really to make profits, valuations, and flip the company over. So obviously that explains the 12%. So who have you targeted your book at as authors?
Rishi, you want to take that? Who have you targeted your book?
Yeah. A week ago we were talking with a company in Delhi, and this is a not very well-known Indian company, and they feel that they are dealing with the commodities, so they are not dealing with science or with IT and so on and so forth. But when we arrived there and we talked to the top team, the chairman of the company, and to the top team, and then I requested, both of us requested, what is your purpose doing this business? And they had a written purpose, a spoken purpose that everybody could say, and they said, we want to preserve and enrich the legacy. Now, this is a true purpose. And when people express their purpose that way, they eventually make better profits and better margins, get better growth, and most of the guys think they can influence this thing by financial tinkering and so on. So more and more people, if they can really articulate what their purpose is, they live long. And people who are doing financial engineering are very often not going to live very, very.
Okay, Rishi has explained purpose, but your question on what is your purpose?
What's your target audience?
My target audience.
Because people, only 12% are really doing, and most of them today, owners are interested in profiteering.
No, fine.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So who are you targeting?
We were targeting to remind people of what they already know. Most errors in life happen because what you know you have forgotten for a moment. Take your own health, how much weight you put on, how you manage your finances, whether you go for exercise, whether you go to the Ayurvedic clinic, all that stuff. So we have not come out with anything which mankind has not known, but we said it's a good time when the churn of technology is causing people anxiety to talk about the world has been going on for a long time. Just remember, these rules have been applied since the time of your ancestors. That's helpful. We thought.
Thank you. I'm sure there would be questions, but we are running short of time. I would request Mr. Tom to come and express the vote of thanks. On my behalf, I sincerely thank both the authors. It has been a wonderful session, and I personally went through the book, and it's an excellently well-written book with a lot of examples, and it would be very easy for anybody to relate to the book. Over to you, Tom.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Around 3 o'clock today afternoon, I received a call from Anil Joseph to stand in for him as secretary. He's away on an official commitment in Kathmandu, do not make it today to evening. On behalf of Kerala Management Association, I am honored to stand in front of you to extend a heartfelt thanks for all those who made this review of this book a success. And the answer to the question, the target to the book, he said, a reminder that what we know and what we should keep doing. See, he said it's adapt, most important, and what is right. We all know what is right, but then most of the time we fail or we forget to do what is right. And the transformation is for the change what brings on to the customers or the people, not alone for the company or the corporates. And one sentence which I liked is, management is a performing art, which many of us can.
I think what you really like was saying is like Kottakkal.
Yeah, but then when we perform Kottakkal, it can be different variations. That's right. And the point, the behavior, leadership, shaper, and everything. By the time I listen to totality, I am totally confused. I think I have to read that book, those pages, a couple of times to understand this better. Firstly, let me get on to my responsibility. Our deepest gratitude goes to our esteemed chief guest today, Mr. GOPALAKRISHNAN. The former director TATA Sons, and Mr. HRISHIKESH BHATTACHARYYA, former Vice President, Unilever. Your insights and reflections on the book have enriched understanding and appreciation of the themes. We are grateful for your presence and valuable time you're spending with us. Thank you, sir. I request our President, Viku Punuran, to compliment him.
I'm calling you Algiers Khalid and you are Tripoli Thank you very much. And genuinely thanks to all of you for the raising. It's very great.
Thank you very much. We extend our sincere thanks to our moderator HARIKUMAR, CEO of Vaidhya Sala. Sir, the moderation was very adept and questions were very thoughtful questions. And you steered this discussion in a wonderful manner and ensured lively engagement with all the participants. Thank you, sir. To all our members and attendees, thank you for your enthusiasm in participation. Your presence and active involvement makes us more committed to the more programs. A special thanks to Secretary, wonderful team. You have been very much on this program for last 2 days, called many congratulations and appreciations to you as well. And lastly, let me take the insights and the learning from today's discussion to heart as we continue to embrace the future with more optimism and determination. See, I was thinking while listening to this meeting, our past president Vivek is sitting at the space of a chair with the Shiv. So down 25 years he's confused whether he will be a better parent, and Shiva is also on the other side thinking the same case. Okay, so
He's got a son also.
yeah, that's Shiv. Okay, so both of you read the book couple of times, so can be happy. And
One book sold.
yeah. Thank you once again. Have a good evening ahead. And those who silence the phone, please switch them on. Thank you.
I was standing here just to thank another person whom we probably should be thanking. That is Mr. Rajan Nair, who is a very close friend of Mr. GOPALAKRISHNAN. And I see you online, sir. So because he was instrumental in getting this evening done.
Rajan online?
Yeah, he's there online. So that's why he actually is
yes, I can see.
he had a problem with his health. So thank you very much, Mr. B. Nair, for being with us this evening online.
You know, Rajan Nair's claim to fame, in my eyes, 1962 or 63, I was in Cinzerius, he was in IIT. And we had a table tennis match and he beat the hell out of him. You're a very good table tennis player. Okay, let's stand for it.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जगति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे राधे तव जय गाथा जय गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Hari, wonderful.